Hello, Divorce and Beyond family. I've got some exciting news because we have teamed up with Headspace to guide you toward better mental health. With Headspace's meditation, mindfulness tools, and mental health support, you're set for a journey to a happier, healthier you. And there's more because if you sign up through our exclusive link, you'll enjoy 2 weeks of Headspace membership for free. So don't miss out on this opportunity to embrace your well-being. You can check out the show notes for the link or just go to divorcebeyond.com/headspace-Susan. And you'll be able to start your path to peace and joy today. This is just one more way that we can support you on your journey to a better beyond.
Coming up on today's episode of the Divorce and Beyond podcast.
The day you get that diagnosis and suddenly you're like, I need to start living my life. I need to start prioritizing all these other things that really matter and all this other stuff doesn't matter. I wish I could give that moment to them without them having to go through that bad thing. And that would really change people's lives immensely, is just that notion that, focus on the highest priority things, the things that matter the most, and go live your life to the fullest, because tomorrow is not guaranteed.
Hello, and welcome to the Divorce and Beyond podcast. I'm Susan Guthrie, your host. As a top divorce attorney and family law mediator for 30 years, I know what you need to know to get through your divorce, and most importantly, how to move beyond it to thrive and transition to your new future. My experts and I are here to give you the insider view into the process, so listen in for the wisdom and expert information you need on your journey through divorce and beyond. Hello, and welcome to today's podcast. I'm Susan Guthrie, your host, and listeners. Today, I have a very inspiring guest for you. Stephen Johnston is our guest today, and in his real world, he's not a divorce professional. I know that sounds probably a little different to all of you out there because I'm usually bringing you some of the top experts in the areas of divorce and beyond. Stephen is a radiologist and an Ironman triathlete, so he's coming from a very different place than most of our guests. He is also, I want to mention right at the top of the episode, the founder of the nonprofit A Race Against Blindness, and you'll understand why. But I want you to be aware of the nonprofit and the work that he's doing from the beginning. But Stephen embarked on an incredible journey, both as I would say probably as a physician, because I would imagine that has rolled into this as well, as a father, and importantly as a co-parent, as he learned and his family learned that his son Luke was diagnosed with a rare condition that's causing him to lose his sight. We'll be talking about their family journey through Luke's experience as well as his parents' experience, and also the efforts that Stephen it has gone through to raise awareness and raise funds for research. So first, let me just thank you for taking time out of what I know is a very busy day to come and join us and to share with us, Stephen. Thank you so much.
No, thank you for having me. It's a real pleasure to be here. It is a busy day, but these things are really important, and I'm really passionate about talking about it. And I think the co-parenting side is a really important piece of that. And I'm really passionate about helping other co-parents navigate their journey of co-parenting, which every one of them is different. But if my little journey can help, provide any value to yours, I think it's a great opportunity to share that kind of story and what we've done and what's worked for us and how we've gotten to where we are.
Yeah, well, and you and I were just talking about, sometimes it's just an awareness or shining a light on something that worked for your family. They say that pressure sort of brings some clarity. It's kind of like that diamond, right? Diamonds are made out of enormous pressure, and then they bring these beautiful, clear stones. And I always look at that as the pressure sometimes that we go under in stressful times or difficult situations also can bring some clarity to all different areas of our lives. And I know that this has impacted your co-parenting relationship and just your journey as a dad and your family's journey. So, maybe we could start with you telling us about Luke's diagnosis and what that has entailed for your family.
Sure. So my son is now 10 years old. He has a rare genetic condition that's causing him to lose his vision, as you said. The condition is called Bardet-Biedl syndrome, and the umbrella condition is called retinitis pigmentosa, which encompasses many different genetic causes of vision loss in that kind of class of disease. But he has some vision loss now, and he's expected to rapidly progress to legal blindness by his mid to late teenage years. So we're kind of in this really small window of time where he has decent vision, but he's actively losing it every single day. So that's why we founded the nonprofit that you mentioned, A Race Against Blindness, and that's why we're fighting for a cure. But kind of to the point of this podcast, we were divorced and we were co-parents before we found out about his diagnosis. So that was something that happened after we had, been co-parenting for a while together. So we really came into this diagnosis from the space of co-parents who had to then navigate that diagnosis together and how we move forward together, both just in taking care of Luke, giving him everything he needs, and then taking on a bigger challenge, which is running this nonprofit together. So it really has been a very big journey with lots of changes in our lives, and I'm excited to be able to share some of that with you guys today.
Yeah, it's one of those things, I can just imagine. You mentioned to me in our pre-interview chat that you and your former spouse, Luke's mom, had a good co-parenting relationship prior to this happening and getting Luke's diagnosis. But I would imagine that type of a diagnosis or any major challenge like this, right? This is not probably what you saw for your son and his future. And so there's that realization for all of you that the future is going to look different. And as a family law attorney for such a long time, I can say I've seen people facing that type of challenge. It often will drive people apart, not together. And in your case, I think you mentioned you feel that it's you gave you something that you were working together toward and even brought you closer together as co-parents for your son's benefit. And I'm just wondering, what that journey was like in those early days.
So, of course, it was hard. Anybody who goes through any of these things and says it's otherwise is probably not being, truthful. So I think that just acknowledging that any of these things are very hard to get through, and how to navigate it, how to make the right decisions is very challenging. Even if you get to a good place in the end and you're like, oh, wow, they're doing so great and it looks so easy for them. It wasn't always. So we had to go through those hard moments. We had to have those tough discussions and how to navigate these things and what our lives are going to look like. So like you mentioned, we had a good co-parenting relationship when we left our marriage, and we had been working well together because I think we both understood that it's to the best interest of the kids. Even if we knew we couldn't be together and that we weren't compatible in marriage, that whatever we did, we still had to put them first, put aside the differences, put aside anything else that may have been in the past that put us in that position, and knew that would be important for navigating what was to come. And so we had a good foundation that we were working from, and that we had, established that baseline. So as a general piece of advice is, of course, you don't know what the future is going to hold, but there is probably going to be some hardship, some challenge, something to overcome. And if you have a good foundation, the ability to get through that is going to be so much more. You're going to have so much more of an opportunity to succeed if you have a good foundation. So I'm grateful that we had that good foundation, so that when we did get a tough thing that came in front of us, such as my son's diagnosis, we had something to build from, we had something to work for, and work from, and to move forward. And so we could have those tough conversations and decide how we're going to approach this and what was best for the kids. And so we were able to successfully create this co-parenting life post-diagnosis where we're really working together. Much of our lives have emerged, and we're working towards really what's in the best interest for him, to give him as much as he can, and our daughter as well, who's along the ride here with us, and she's no less important and no less a part of it. Just she's not part of the kind of public discussion, of course, with all this, but her needs and how she perceives all this is just as important. So just working together every day to make sure they both have what they need.
I love that you mentioned your daughter as a part and her role in the journey as well, because I think that's important and something that happens in families sometimes when there are siblings and one sibling is facing a challenge or has something happening, that sometimes another sibling maybe have less focus on them, or the shine is elsewhere. And no one would wish that shine, right? The negative consequence of the diagnosis and all that. But it is important to understand that this type of diagnosis affected every single one of you in your family structure, including your daughter, I would imagine.
Yeah, absolutely did. And I, right when we got the diagnosis, I'm somebody who is very open to asking for help and advice. So I started to reach out to people in the community, and I connected with somebody who's pretty well known in the vision loss space, Molly Burke. She's a big YouTuber and she has retinitis pigmentosa. And I asked her, I'm like, what advice would you give me for how to approach this with my kids? And she told me what she thought I should be doing with Luke and all that kind of stuff. And she had a very insightful comment, which is, and your daughter, she needs support too. She's going through this with you guys. And so she recommended, potentially therapy for her, even all that kind of stuff, just making sure that she was getting what she needed, because she's as much processing the diagnosis and seeing it all happen as we are. So that was really an important piece of advice to get. And ever since then, I've really kept that kind of at the forefront. Is, I know Luke has specific certain needs that he is going to specifically have in this process as he loses vision, but so is his sister, even if they're just, the emotional impacts on her. I mean, I'm emotionally impacted by knowing my son's going to lose vision, obviously. Just because she's younger doesn't mean she doesn't know that also and isn't impacted by that also. So those emotional impacts are real, and we need to make sure she's addressed as well and has all the stuff she needs. So yeah, it's definitely affected every single one of us in different ways.
Yeah, I can, and probably differently every day. The journey is not a smooth one as you move through these things. So the needs might change for everyone in the paradigm. And I would imagine that, I've worked with so many families and so many co-parents along the way, and it's somewhat a truth that no matter how aligned parents are, there do come times when they don't agree on what's best for a child. And sometimes these high pressure situations or these challenging times, that raises the magnifying glass on those sort of issues. And I'm just wondering if you've faced some challenges like that. I mean, you may have an additional, is your ex-wife a physician as well?
She's trained as a nurse, so she has medical background. Yes.
Okay, so we got a lot of medical. I've represented a lot of doctors in my career over the years, and I know that, and I've represented lawyers, and I know when you represent lawyers, they bring their law degree into the room when they're getting advice, and sometimes medical personnel do the same thing when they're making decisions and getting advice. And I wonder how the two of you have faced having conversations where you're maybe coming at looking at what's best for Luke or his sister a little bit differently.
Yeah, I mean, we of course have different opinions, and we have different, thoughts on how we should approach things. And ultimately, I think we've luckily had enough practice, in that we had, a couple of years of co-parenting leading up to it, to really start to figure out our problem solving style together in terms of making those things. And there can always be something good that comes from a situation. We didn't communicate and we didn't problem solve well in our marriage. And that obviously led to issues that led to the marriage not working. But in that process, I think we learned how to communicate together better. We learned each other's communication styles better. And I understand where she's coming from better. And I can, take that into my, reaction of what she's saying and what her concerns are, and, addressing her concerns and her hearing my concerns. And then we can try to find a middle ground together. So yes, we didn't communicate well for a long time, but you can always learn, you can always get better at it. And so practice helps those things. So the more you do it, the more you communicate, the better at it you get. So that's really been something that's been in our favor over the past, 5 or 6 years of, kind of co-parenting, to really develop that skill set. And it's served us well as you start to get to even more tougher and tougher decisions. Like, there's going to be a clinical trial someday for this. How are we going to approach that? How are we going to enroll him? Are we going to, all these different questions. Like, so those are tough conversations, the discussions. And so talking about them early and often really help with, making those decisions when it's time to make a decision really, helpful.
Hey, listeners. Are you navigating the tough waters of divorce and feeling overwhelmed by the process? Let me introduce you to Hello Divorce, your ultimate ally in making this journey smoother and less stressful. Hello Divorce offers a modern, affordable approach to divorce, combining expert legal advice with easy-to-use online tools. So whether you need help with paperwork, mediation, or simply some guidance, Hello Divorce has you covered. Plus, their flat fee services mean no hidden costs, just clear upfront pricing. Visit hellodivorce.com today to learn more and take the first step toward your fresh start. Remember, you don't have to do this alone. Hello Divorce is here to help. Stay tuned for more from Dr. Stephen Johnston as he shares his co-parenting journey in the face of his son's rare illness and impending blindness. Dr. Stephen and his co-parent have navigated the waters of their son's rare disease, and their journey will inspire you and help guide you through some of the difficult times you may face in your co-parenting journey.
If you can focus in on that why, whatever it is, that why really drives how you interact every day and the decisions you make, and it makes everything else less challenging when you just like, okay, does this help me accomplish this goal, this why? And if it doesn't, then no, we're not going to do it and we're not going to worry about it. And if it does, then we're going to make sure that happens, and put everything else aside. So when you have your why, everything else is so much easier.
If you are finding this episode helpful and want more support on co-parenting and having a child-focused divorce, visit the podcast website at divorceandbeyondpod.com and click on the divorce topics menu item. You'll find an entire page dedicated to children and divorce from top experts, including Divorce and Beyond fave, Christina McGee, the author of Parenting Apart.
And now we return to today's show.
You have started Race Against Blindness to raise funds for a cure. As the not-for-profit continues to raise funds, clinical trials would be a wonderful outcome of that, right? It means that money is coming in for research and cures are being tested. So I have a friend who 30-some years ago found out she had multiple myeloma at a time when no one had even heard of multiple myeloma, and she and her sister founded the Multiple Myeloma Research Foundation, and Kathy is alive today. She was given a 4-year, life expectancy at the time, 30 plus years ago, and now she's alive today because of the research their foundation did. So there's such power in this, but then you also know that there will be additional challenges because it's early days in a cure. But tell me about founding Race Against Blindness, because I would imagine, I know it's a work of love and passion. It's a lot of work, yeah. But does it also bring some hope and some purpose behind what your family is going through and the challenges you're facing?
Yeah, so A Race Against Blindness, we co-founded together, Christina and I, co-parents, Luke's mom and dad. We founded it together, so a unified front and mission to support awareness and funds for a potential cure for his condition. So it obviously gives us a unified goal to work towards together, that we both want this thing to happen. So that gives us a very common ground to meet on for a lot of these topics and discussions. So that's been really important to be doing that together. And I think that that's, really something that, can be a corollary for anybody else, which is like, you're going through co-parenting, try to find some common ground that you're working towards, whatever it is. It doesn't have to be a nonprofit that you're,
Although that's not a bad idea.
Yeah.
If you're passionate about something, but yes.
But volunteering, volunteering and service to others is a really powerful thing that's, just so fulfilling and so rewarding. So like, if your family, maybe you guys are all passionate about a charity together and you guys want to go volunteer at a a shelter or do something like that together. You can go do that as co-parents together because it's good for the kids to see that. You're both passionate about it, and that's a common ground that you can work towards as a family. We've worked on this together as a family towards this goal, and we've been, running this now for the past year and a half approximately, and raising funds and awareness, and we're quickly working towards, a potential clinical trial that could, halt his vision loss and save his eyesight and be a real potential cure. So it's been hard work, as you mentioned, very exciting, very rewarding, and very worth the long hours and hard work. So we're really happy how things are coming along, and we keep at it every day.
Well, how are you raising funds? I assume you have a donation portal on the website, and of course that will be in the show notes, everyone. But what other ways are you reaching out and raising funds?
Yeah, so we did some of the typical donation type stuff, which is general fundraisers, and there's some success with that. But it's hard raising money for a rare disease. It's also hard being a new unknown nonprofit. It's one thing like everybody's heard of Susan G. Komen, but nobody's heard of A Race Against Blindness. So there is that kind of like curve to overcome of like, are you real? Is this a real thing? And like, what are you advocating for? So we kind of had to be creative in trying to get our message out quickly and to a wide audience. So we started doing these kind of raffle style giveaway fundraisers where we give away things of value that can generate kind of just a buzz and interest for people who have never heard of this thing that we're fighting for. And so like, oh, wow, you're giving away a van, like this adventure van thing. And like, oh, I like those. And then they hear our story and they're like, wow, I'm really moved by what you're doing and why you're doing it. And then it explodes and blossoms into this, mission that actually has purpose behind it. But, you have to have, if you're trying to get, awareness, you have to get people's attention somehow. And there's so many important causes going on in the world. There's so many horrible things going on in the world, so many tragedies in the world that, from any number of choices. So to get attention to, your cause and make people aware of it. And, so you have to be creative. So these giveaway fundraisers have been our little way to just generate that buzz and interest, and it's worked well. And we're on $1 million goal this year, and we're halfway to it right now. So we're
really, oh, that's amazing!
Yeah.
Congratulations. That's not an insignificant amount of money for a brand new charity to have already raised. Bravo!
It's really hard. Yeah,
yes,
it's really hard.
I know it is, and especially just the economic place that so many people find themselves in right now. You are all to be commended, because that is a wonderful accomplishment already. And I'm hoping that this podcast will also raise some awareness. And for my listeners, I think there's such value in hearing sort of the clarity. Working together for your children's benefit has helped you and your children's mom, your co-parent, take what was already a good co-parenting relationship, but really even take it to the next level. That you're doing all of this together as a family really says a lot about your commitment to your children, to your family, and to each other. I always have said, as I've worked with families, you may not be married anymore, but in many ways you're still a family as you go forward. And that brings to mind, so how we've talked about you and Luke's mom and your daughter, but how about your extended family and extended families? Because sometimes, that is another place where things can get a little rocky and difficult between divorced parents or separated parents as they try to navigate the world with former family members or former in-laws, or just your community. I would imagine, that it's had ripple effects.
Yeah, it does. And, the divorce in general, I think was, hard on everybody, of course. That's a big change in your life, big change in routines and time. I know that, the grandparents had a very hard time with it because, it went from like, we could see the kids every weekend. They both live in the area and all that kind of stuff to, at first, I had my weekend, she had her weekend, things like that. And then it's like the grandparents, get less weekends and less time. So it was really hard on extended family. Unfortunately, that probably hasn't changed a lot because, as we've now merged a lot of our lives and routines, and we do trips together, and we did this big travel experience together last summer where we traveled around the whole Pacific Northwest as a divorced family and, everybody came. We've merged a lot of our lives, but still like the grandparents still have less time with the kids than that they would want. And, as we focus on the nonprofit and working on trying to support a cure for him, there's a lot of time that goes towards that effort. So there's no way to slice it. It's hard. There's just not enough time in the day for everybody who loves everybody. The kids are so loved by extended family and everybody wants to be a part of everything. And unfortunately, the reality is that that's not the case, that everybody can be involved in everybody. And I wish there was a solution for that. And I think that that's, one of the hard things that weighs on all of us is, like that you can't make everybody happy every step of the way, and that there are hard limits on what is possible in a situation like this. And so we do the best we can. We try to take those things into account, but at the end of the day, it is no other way to say it. It's just hard.
No, well, and I appreciate that you say, there's only so many hours in the day and there's only so many ways you can slice it up. So sometimes there is no easy solution to this. And I know that that is so hard for families going through sort of that post-divorce or post-separation life. Is sometimes the reality just is things are different. Things won't be the way that everyone wants them at all times. And sometimes that just is the new reality. And you do the best you can. I love that you said that, because sometimes the best that you can may not be as much as everyone wants. But if you're doing your best, and you're trying, ultimately your priority has to be your nuclear family and your children. Obviously, you've mentioned several times that it's really the kids that all of this is for. So that can be a guiding light for other parents who might find themselves. That's such a common situation, right? That the divorce brings or the separation brings that ripple effect of discord or an upset in the family. So, just based on what your family has gone through, I'm wondering what advice you might have for parents who, and this could be parents who are facing a difficult diagnosis or a challenge for a child. If they're married, if they're not married, if they're together, they're not together. I think this is something that for so many families is like the day before the diagnosis and then the day after the diagnosis, or the day after you find about the world changes. And I just wonder what advice you might have for the parents who are out there listening when this comes up.
A couple ways to take that. So just on like a personal level, the diagnosis part, which is, as a physician, I should know better, right? That, anything can happen on any given day and tomorrow's not assured. But, nonetheless, before something happens to you, sometimes you just really don't appreciate it and understand that. But I wish I could bottle up the feeling of the day you get that diagnosis and suddenly you're like, I need to start living my life. I need to start prioritizing all these other things that really matter, and all this other stuff doesn't matter. Because that's, such a reframing moment in your life of, and you hear it with people who get cancer when they're older and they're like, oh my God, I got to go on my bucket list trips and all these things. I wish I could give that moment to them without them having to go through that bad thing. And that would really change people's lives immensely, is just that notion that, focus on the highest priority things, the things that matter the most, and go live your life to the fullest, because tomorrow is not guaranteed. So that would be just kind of from a personal level of like, if you can hear one thing from this and like change your life from it, that would be it. As a family level, I mean, you have to understand your why. That's really going to, let you be successful in how you structure all these different things. If you understand why you're doing what you're doing, everything else is so much easier. And in this case, we know why we're doing it, for our son and the complex condition he has and all the things he's going to need, and my daughter. So, if you can focus in on that why, whatever it is, whether it's you're just like, I want my, kids to be able to, be as successful in, high school sports as possible. And then that's your why. And you're going to like, make sure that all those other things don't matter. And you're going to, make sure that those activities happen regardless of the co-parenting and all the other things. Or it's something bigger, like what we're going through. That why really drives how you interact every day and the decisions you make. And it makes everything else less challenging when you just like, okay, does this help me accomplish this, goal, this why? And if it doesn't, then no, we're not going to do it and we're not going to worry about it. And if it does, then we're going to, make sure that happens, and put everything else aside. So when you have your why, everything else is so much easier.
That is fabulous. First off, to your first point on that bigger scope, I love your analogy of bottling that feeling, which might be hard to understand for a listener at first, but that it's almost like that moment of awareness that tomorrow is not assured, or tomorrow being like today is not assured, whatever that might be for you or anyone else around you. And so that realization that today and this now is what you have. Go do those things, go be and live the way you want to live. You'd make a fortune. We'd get the money for the cure if we could bottle that. So wonderful takeaway there, but also knowing the why, knowing your why somewhat boils down maybe to allows you to take that wider focus of, is this thing that we are disagreeing about, or is this thing that I am so focused on right now, or is this thing that seems so all big, is it really that important? Is it going to get us to the why, to the reason that we're going for it? Just maybe don't sweat the small stuff, because so often we can get caught up in the minutiae or the dynamic of conflict without it really being something that I do have done so many cases where you sit at a table with people who are talking about like dividing their stuff up, and you'll end up having a discussion over the CD collection, and you realize you're not really talking about the CD collection, you're talking about something bigger. But if you really are talking about the CD collection, maybe that's not your why, unless you really like it. So I love that that analogy as well. And I want to make sure, we mentioned the charity, but I'd love to hear, your hopes for Luke's future, short-term, long-term, for his future, and how my listeners can support your family and support your nonprofit, the Race Against Blindness. Let us know what we can do.
Yeah. Thank you for asking about that. So A Race Against Blindness, we're a 501c3 nonprofit. We're in all the usual places you can find people. Our website's araceagainstblindness.org, and we're on all the usual social media channels like Instagram and Facebook. You can just search for A Race Against Blindness, we'll pop up. I know there's so many important missions out there and so many important things that you can focus your time and energy on. I appreciate your consideration of ours, and even if you can't make a donation, just, following along, sharing it with your friends and family, all those kind of things, those no cost ways of supporting are just so impactful. And they've been as big of an impact as the people who can make donations, because if people don't know about us, they can't be inspired to help. And so that's really an important part of it. And then, the other side of this, which is, the unique part of our nonprofit, which is what we're fighting for is really tangible and is really in reach. The research that we're fighting for is based off of a technology that's already been used once to cure a different cause of childhood blindness. And so we are right there. We're in reach. Just the money's not there. It's a rare disease. It doesn't get the funding it needs from big pharma or the government or all those places. So we really have this unique opportunity where if you donated today, in 1 or 2 years, potentially, you could sit there and see that this clinical trial is happening, and that, a few years after that, you could be like, wow, there's children walking around who have their vision because of this donation I made. And there's no donation too small. $1 makes a difference. If we had 15 million people who all put in $1, we'd be sitting on a cure right now. And to me, that would be one of the coolest things ever, the story of the century, which is 15 million people all put in $1 to make this thing happen. The challenge is how you reach 15 million people and get them to even give $1. It's very hard. It's very challenging because there are so many important things in the world, and finances are hard and tough. So we understand all that, but I really believe everybody can make a difference if this is something that moves them, and we appreciate anybody's support, whether it's just the support, kind words, a prayer, sharing things, or giving $1. All of it makes a difference. So we appreciate every single one of our supporters, and then some.
Well, I'm going to make an ask of my listeners. You're reaching a fair number of people through this podcast, maybe not 15 million, but there's a bunch of zeros after it. To the extent that you all can, please consider giving a donation. Or if you can't make a donation, consider, go to the Divorce and Beyond Instagram or my Instagram. I'll be posting about this episode and about A Race Against Blindness all week. Please repost, put it in your stories, let people know. Awareness of the mission and the charity and the urgent need for funds is one way that you can help. So please just consider doing that, letting me know, tag me, tag A Race for Blindness. And we'll get this ball rolling, guys. I love the idea that we might be able to see a cure in just a short period of time. So please consider helping. I appreciate you all. And Stephen, I truly appreciate your coming on and sharing your family's journey, your son's journey with us all. This is, I know, not always an easy thing to talk about, but I'm very grateful. I know my listeners are, and I'm sure they got some wonderful insights out of this conversation. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Pleasure's all mine. It really means a lot to be able to be here and talk about these things. And I hope there's something that you can take and apply to your situation and get through some tough times of your own. And of course, we're here if you have any questions or need anything. So feel free to reach out. We're available. But thank you so much for listening and being here. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. And again, links will be in the show notes, everyone, or go hit up the Instagram at Susan Guthrie Esquire or at Divorce and Beyond. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you for joining me today on the Divorce and Beyond podcast. I hope you found some information and inspiration to help you on this journey. Please join me every Monday at 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time for a new episode. And if you like the show, please take the time to subscribe and leave me a 5-star review on iTunes. You can also find more information on the website at divorceandbeyondpod.com, where you'll find links to the YouTube channel, transcripts of the episodes, and other bonus content. So I'll see you next week to help you move through your divorce and beyond.